warmest greetings to all who are watching this podcast. Violence against women is a pervasive social problem, not just in the Philippines, but worldwide, affecting an estimated 1 in 3 women. The 2022 National Demographic and Health Survey, released by the Philippine Statistics Authority, reveals that nearly 1 out of 5 women have experienced emotional, physical, or sexual violence by their current or most recent intimate partner. In 2023 alone, 8,055 cases classified under the Republic Act number 9262, otherwise known as the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act of 2004, were reported to the Philippine National Police. Despite significant progress made through the years, much remains to be done as the journey towards gender equality is long and challenging. According to the Global Gender Gap 2024 Insight report by the World Economic Forum, it will take 134 years to achieve full gender parity. This staggering number translates to give generations beyond the 2030 Sustainable Development Goal Target 5 of achieving gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls. With a goal to be vow-free country, the Philippines being the most gender equal country in Asia and ranking 25th out of 146 economies in this year's Global Gender Gap Index, has been working tirelessly to make gender equality a lived reality. As early as 1987, gender equality was enshrined into our Constitution and introduced a new family code to eliminate many discriminatory legal provisions. As defined in Republic Act 9262, violence against women refers to any act or series of acts committed by any person against a woman who is his wife, former wife, or against a woman with whom the person has or had a sexual or dating relationship, or with whom he has a common child, or against her child, whether legitimate or illegitimate, within or without the family abode, which result in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or psychological harm or suffering, or economic abuse, including threats of such acts, battery, assault, coercion, harassment, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty. Violence against women is not just a concern of women or the victim survivors themselves. Violence against women is in fact a universal issue that affects all genders, hence the term gender-based violence. Violence against women is a severe violation of women's human rights and a significant social development issue. While it may originate in the home, violence against women has a far-reaching effect on society, as women and girls are considered half of our population. Violence against women is a major global health crisis that adversely affects the individual's physical, sexual, emotional, and mental and economic well-being. With the 2022 to 2027 recurring campaign theme, United for a Vow-Free Philippines, and its 2024 sub-theme, Vow Bigyang Wakas, Ngayon na ang Oras, the Philippine Commission on Women highlights the urgency of the advocacy in line with the commemoration of the 20th anniversary of the signing of the Anti-Vowsy Act of 2004. This year, the 𝐀𝐧𝐭 Committee decided to continue last year's daily podcast during the 18th campaign to end violence against women because awareness raising is key to spreading the clear message of zero tolerance of all forms of violence against women and children, and to inform the victims of their rights and the support services that are available to them. Kofi Annan, a former Secretary General of the United Nations, said, "Violence against women is perhaps the most shameful human rights violation, and it is perhaps the most pervasive. It knows no boundaries of geography, culture, or wealth. As long as it continues, we cannot claim to be making real progress towards equality, development, and peace. So please watch the daily podcast starting November 25 until December 12. Together, we can raise awareness, foster empathy, and drive change in our communities. Let's make a difference one episode at a time. Thank you, and may God bless us all.
Important disclaimer: this podcast may contain content, language, and discussions that could be unsuitable for certain audiences. Listener discretion is advised. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the podcast platform. Parental guidance is recommended. Additionally, please be aware that this episode includes discussions about violence against women and children. A trigger warning is issued, and we encourage sensitive listeners to exercise caution. Thank you for understanding.
Madayao, this is your Davao lawyer, Atty. Blue Ventosa, a member of the Board of Directors of Silangan Multipurpose Cooperative and the Vice Chairperson of the GAD Committee of NATCO Network. Hello and welcome to our 18-day campaign to end violence against women and children. Today, we will tackle the laws, especially on women and children, with focus on Republic Act 9262 or the Anti-Violence Against Women and Children. This law is all about the protection of women and children, which compiles previous laws on the protection of a child, like child abuse, and outlines the different abuses inflicted upon women by men. So it would include economic abuse, sexual abuse, psychological abuse, and verbal abuse. And this law has been a bit, really a long time already, but there still needs something to be done. And here at NATCO, Gender and Development, where we educate, empower, and engage, we invite you for these 18 days, which we had already started sometime last year. At the same time, last November 25 to December 12, wherein we tackled different laws protecting women and children. And at the penultimate episode, we also interviewed a congressperson who is an advocate of gender equality. So what is 9262 all about? So it is the law which gives heavier penalties to men who inflicts the said abuses against their women, whether it's their wife, their girlfriends, their commercial sex workers, or even a casual relationship, because it does not really need the victim to be a legal spouse. And of course, it also protects the children of the offended spouse, the offended girlfriend, the offended partner, or the one with a dating relationship. And this piece of legislation was landmark legislation because it also, the first time, gave a exempting circumstance to a woman who may have murdered or killed her husband, her boyfriend, her lover, when she is already a battered woman. This was the first time that this was also put into law, because the woman, if she was physically, sexually, verbally, or emotionally abused for a long time, and when emotions spill over and the heat of anger or frustration, or even in self-defense, she may have blackened out and killed somebody, the law states that she will not be penalized or imprisoned. And other features of this law include, but not limits to, temporary protection orders and permanent protection orders. These are orders that give temporary relief to the victim while the case is yet to be tried. It means that the woman and the children may be protected from the offending spouse, partner, father, or boyfriend, or the one with a dating relationship, first by giving a certain distance that they cannot go near the women and children who are victims. And it includes also the online spaces that which they cannot intrude. And it will also include the delivery of some personal properties that may be needed by the woman or the child, like a vehicle, cell phones, tablets, or laptops, or other needs that may help them in their employment or in their school, and even a property like a house and lot, irregardless of the ownership of those personal or real properties. And this protection order may be applied to before the barangay, wherein it usually gives a 30-day protection period while the case is still to be filed in court. And it could also be filed in court, which could be extended by the court first through a temporary protection order, then a permanent protection order. And of course, the court can mandate the giving of financial support if there is a prayer for that, because as we know, our women have this multiple burden, and they are also the ones who have the reproductive roles, and sometimes they are also the ones who are the breadwinner. So these men, if they cannot comply with their economic obligations, may be penalized or maybe even imprisoned while the case is pending, whether they do not have the money to post bail or if they cannot comply with the order of the court for support. Nonetheless, the father or the boyfriend or the other man can have visitation rights with their children, but it may be controlled by the courts. And of course, there is also this amicable settlement if the case is filed in court, wherein the case may be dismissed provisionally, but it will stay in the records for 2 years, such that if the offender may commit another offense, they may be imprisoned again or pay the fine or what is provided for in the decision. The 9262, I think, has addressed the root causes of violence against women and children to some extent, but not that extensively, especially in the part of the record keeping. Because as we know, although we have some court records and courts dockets which records these offenses, the name of the accused, what was the status of the case, but still this 9262 has no extensive database that could be used by the police, by the prosecution, by the judiciary, and the community at large to gauge if the offender is a first-time offender, a habitual offender, or already a recidivist. So that's why I think it is one of the challenges right now, the record keeping and having it updated, because most of the time, some offenders have an alias, so their records in the criminal cases do not match up. Okay, so what are the major challenges in implementing 9262 and how these challenges can be overcome? These major challenges still are in the educations, whether in our schools, in our homes, or in our community, and the budget again of the implementing agencies like the Philippine National Police, the Prosecution Service, and to some extent the Department of Social Welfare and Development, because as we know, they are also very saddled with other duties and obligations that they have not enough manpower and resources to address these challenges. 9262 has impacted the lives of women and children that have experienced violence by giving the proper mechanisms of, especially in the Women's and Children's Protection Desk, the DSWD, and to some extent the Commission on Human Rights, which is supposed to be the ombudsman of women's rights. Then we have to connect Republic Act 9262 to RA 9710, which is the Magna Carta for Women, which we know is also derived from the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women and the 1948 Human Rights Law of the United Nations. And Republic Act 11313, which is the Safe Spaces Act, which expanded the coverage of the Anti-Sexual Harassment Law of 1995 to cover not only women but also men and all other sexes and genders wherever they may be. The key differences between 9262 and previous legislation addressing violence against women and children are first the heavier penalties and higher fines that are imposed upon our offenders, and the protection, as I mentioned earlier, that could give them temporary protection and permanent protection and support later on. But we know that the challenges are also the capacity of the giver, in this case, the father or the boyfriend or the father of the partner, that don't have the economic capacity to give the financial support. How does 9262 address the issue of gender stereotypes and their role in perpetuating violence? Well, it protects our women from verbal abuse, or also if it would include the limitation of their education or their livelihood or even their interaction with their pets. If the pets would be also compromised or injured or even some extent killed, the owner, in this case the woman or the children, can also complain against the offender in this 9262. With regard to the roles and responsibilities of different stakeholders, like the government agencies, the NGOs, and the community groups, first is we have the pillars of the justice system, which are the community or the people. We have the police, we have the prosecution, the judiciary, and the rehabilitation or prisons. So there should be a comprehensive education drive, not only by the government, but also us through our cooperatives, wherein we can use our CETFs, our CDFs, our optional funds, and even our operating expenses if need be, to fund our education drive and fund our infrastructure projects that would have impact on women and children. How does RA 9262 balance the rights of the accused with the protection of victims? As we know, the accused at all times are covered with the constitutional guarantee of non-deprivation of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Still, even if there are seemingly harsh or even, as they say, prejudicial protection in favor of women and in prejudice of the men, they still have the rights, of course, to counsel. They have the rights to know the charges against them. They have the rights to humane treatment, and they even have the rights to privacy, whether for the offender or for the victims. Especially the victims, the court usually seals these records. The records should not be divulged to the public. If we can read some cases in the Supreme Court, it's just AAA versus BBB and CCC, because they also hide the privacy, the identity, and protect the privacy of the victims.
Ayan. So, thank you for being patient and attentive. If you have some questions, you can ask us online during live, or you could also ask us during the replay and in our succeeding episodes of our 18-day campaign to end violence against women. Thank you and good day to all.